Welcome to our webinar, Trust, Identity and Resilience. Thank you for joining us on time. First of all, can we just do a sound check? We have had some problems in our pre-flight checks that we always do. Can we just raise our hands that you can all hear me, see us all? Great, fantastic. That was a close shave, so thanks for that. It's good to see you all. Okay, so let me just... Sorry, Alan.
We've lost Jude.
Okay. Wait for Jude to come back in. Okay, well, while we're waiting for Jude to join us, I'll do a quick intro to me because Jude knows me anyway. So my name's Sharon Munday. I'm your moderator for today's event. I've been in IT for well over 30 years now. I'm an editor of 2 data magazines, and I'm halfway through a master's in cyber, and I'm specializing in ransomware. So that makes today's webinar even more relevant. I've worked with the team at Yo now for, well over a sort of year on PR and messaging. And I just see we've got Jude back, so that's good to see you, Jude. So my apologies that we've started with some technical hitches. So hopefully everybody's back on, you can see us, you can hear us all, and I'll just run through the format of today. So yeah, cool. Okay, so format of today, we've got a great lineup of speakers, all of whom you see on the screen, all waiting to talk to you about their subject matter area. And then we're going to follow up the sessions with an Ask Me Anything question and answer session. So you see, if it's working correctly, we hope, you see the question mark in the box. That's where we'd like you to put your questions and answers in that session, and we'll actually come through to answering everything at the end of this session. And when we say ask me anything, we really do want it to be an ask me sort of anything session. So there is no question that's kind of off limits there, because you only get one chance to rehearse these sorts of issues. Okay, let me bring in the speakers then. To set the scene, can I introduce our first speaker? So Jude, have we lost Jude again, or?
We have lost Jude again. She's back.
There she is. Okay, so let me introduce Jude McCorry. Hi, Jude.
Sorry, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we hear you.
No. I don't know what's going on. It's like every time I try to hit the microphone button, I'm really sorry. So my name is Jude McCorry. I'm the CEO of the Cyber and Fraud Centre in Scotland. I know there's a few people from Scotland on the call. So I will try and keep it as broad as a UK perspective, which, because cyber, as we know, doesn't have any boundaries, and it's not just a Scottish thing, and definitely not a Scottish thing at the moment. I want to spend just a few minutes talking about what we're seeing in general, and also the areas that we probably need to shift the conversation from in areas around cyber. So first one that I think that we need to look at around is, how do we be better prepared for cyber security attacks in general, and also to shift that conversation around where it's definitely going to happen to us. That it's not if, it's when. And the other conversation around is around the data side of things, that a lot of people get really highly strung on the fact that cybersecurity is around data theft. Yes, I'm not saying, you know, that data theft is not important, and GDPR is not important, and our personal data and financial data, etc., is not of the highest importance around cyber attacks. But what we've seen in the last few weeks is around the high-profile attacks around Marks and Spencer's, Jaguar Land Rover, and the Co-op itself. And other attacks are happening all the time, but it is the high-level ones that are making the press. And these, you know, they did start off with comms from these companies saying that that they didn't think any data had been impacted by the attack, and this seemed to be the be all and end all for everybody worrying about their personal data. But what we've seen, particularly in the case of Jaguar Land Rover, is the destruction, the mass destruction that these cyber attacks can cause organizations. And we've seen now that the government has to come in and do a bailout, and I've got lots to say about that, and I won't go on about that today. I don't think that's necessarily the right thing to do, but I do understand why they're having to do it when you're looking at the amount of jobs impacted. So those two things around shifting the narrative around it's not just around data, and then the second one about preparedness. We see it all the time and hear it all the time from customers when we're talking about cyber resilience, I suppose, in general, is that people, they think, oh, well, it's not going to happen to me. We've seen it happen to Jaguar Land Rover and Marks and Spencer's. They're big organizations. I'm a small organization. They're not going to come after me. There is no size of company that hackers won't go after. We've seen them go after charities. We've seen them going after healthcare. We've seen them going after large oil and gas organizations. So it doesn't really matter how many people are in there. So what we're asking people is to be prepared and have that healthy paranoia, not just paranoia in general, but a healthy paranoia to know that, yes, it will be happening, will be coming to your door, but how do you prepare? And the few different things that I would ask organizations to look at, and it's not going to cost millions of pounds for technology, but things around staff training. So most of these attacks, and I know most of them are criminal and still live criminal investigations for the higher level ones, but what we have seen is that most of them have been around people, trying to get into systems like two-factor authentication, password changes, misrepresentation, and just basically preying on individuals in organizations to try and get in. So we're asking people to look at staff training. Cybersecurity is not just an IT problem, it is an issue for all staff around the organizations. So this is very, very cost effective way to do it. NCSC have free online resources, and we at the Cyber and Fraud Centre have a lot of free training. We're actually running some training tomorrow for 2 hours, CPD accredited training, introduction to cybersecurity, and it's for all staff. It's an hour and a half, and if people are into CPD, then they get their credits for that as well. And at the end of the hour and a half, they will have not a boring take on cybersecurity, but one that they will feel that they're part of the cyber resilience story in their organizations. The other thing we're looking at, and we do ask, is that, so it's all of your staff around cyber resilience, but also looking at the board perspective. We want that cyber story to start from the top. We want CEOs and the board to own this conversation, because you have to, same as everything else in your organization, you have to lead from the top. And if CEOs don't think that it affects them, well, look at Jaguar Land Rover and Marks and Spencer's. We've seen Stuart Macon having to stand up and talk to the press, having to issue all the comms as well. He probably wasn't writing the comms, but they were issued in his name. So yes, when things do go wrong, it will be you that will own it. But also to make sure that you're testing your cyber incident response plans. So you make sure you have one in the first place, but test it. We all have fire drills and fire alarm testing, and we are probably not going to have, touch wood, a fire in our organization. We're probably more likely to have a cyber attack. So why do we not have the same testing and routines around testing our cyber incident plans, and make sure the incident plans are up to date, and make sure you've got a printed copy, because when we are testing and we're doing these drills with organizations, the first thing they would say is, I'll print off the incident response plan. So here's a hint, your systems are down, so how are you going to print off that incident response plan? And then things around your cyber insurance. People come back to us and go, it's fine, I'm covered for cyber insurance. It's the same as having your house insurance. If you have left your windows and doors open, they're probably not going to pay out if you've had an attack, or an attack on your home, the same way as you would have a cyber attack on your organization. So make sure what insurance you've got is applicable to your organization. And again, the same way as you test your incident response plan, test and see what you are covered for. Are you covered for incident response support from an IT company, for a proper incident response company? Are you covered for legal support? And also another thing as well, that sometimes you are covered to pay the ransom. So if you have an ethical, moral stance that you will not pay any ransom, make sure that your cyber insurance, your policy says that, because that's the first thing that hackers do go into and look on your systems, is to see how much you have been insured for your cyber insurance. And then usually your ransom is what the ransom amount is on your cyber insurance policy. So going back to the beginning again, just to recap, there's two things that I really want organizations to do: move the conversation from it's all about the data. It's not all about the data. The hackers are coming after organizations to cause as much havoc and catastrophe to these organizations, with job losses, with earning losses, and basically harming the UK economy. And then also looking at the preparedness. So what can you do within your organization to be prepared? So all the things that I spoke about. And the other thing, that the reason why Yo messaging, why I was interested in that, because sometimes when we are working on the incident response plans, a lot of the organizations, the question, they go, we'll get our staff together, we'll speak, we'll talk to them about how we're going to communicate. And I was like, how are you going to get your staff, together? We had it with SEPA, where they didn't have any comms, they didn't have any telephone systems, and they had to rely on Facebook to contact their staff. Friends were reaching out over the Christmas holidays and stuff to say, can you get a mobile phone number and reply back to Facebook and stuff on it. So it's a huge area around your incident response planning and your preparedness around communication, and not just around that, but also around the security of your communication going forward as well, because we do see the hackers coming after a lot of comm systems as well, and that's how they get a lot of the intelligence in, particularly around nation state, not just around the ransom gangs looking for the money, but nation state. If you have got very critical data and critical comms and stuff as well, it is something really to think about in that preparedness going forward. So that's as much as I could talk all day on cyber.
No, we're going to get you back actually at the end of the panel anyway, so we're not done yet. But it does always happen. It always seems to happen on a bank holiday, doesn't it? When they're going for these great big mass destruction events, they seem to love targeting the Christmas breaks and the bank holiday events, because I guess because they're so down on numbers, so that would make sense. Okay, thanks so much, Jude. That's really, really interesting. So what you're basically saying is it's not enough now just to have good cyber defenses. You also need that cyber resiliency layer and to have tested there and to have it planned all the way through. So Christo and Leigh, it seems like a good point in time to bring the both of you in from Yo messaging. Christo, I think you actually wanted to show us the Yo messaging panel.
Yeah, so thanks very much for the intro, Sharon, and Leigh and I will work this together. I've been given very strict instructions not to do a product pitch, which is not what I'm going to do. But my background, I love flying planes, and when we fly planes, one of the key things we do is we do a threat analysis. And how I'd like to start off with is my opening slide, which I'm going to share now. Which will hopefully start this whole idea around threat analysis. Sharon, have you got? Can you actually see my slides?
Yes.
Perfect. So
yes, we do.
Great, thank you. So one of the things that I think a lot of people in the cyber world will agree with me is when we talk about a cyber attack, in almost 80% of the time, those cyber attacks are happening on endpoint devices. And at the same time, we also know that instant messaging is being adopted throughout organizations extremely aggressively. And in today's world, in a lot of those cases, companies are using consumer grade apps as a mechanism to essentially start messaging between each other. And that's really what starts this problem around the threat coming into those organizations. So Yo, which is a British company, we developed a technology that is called continuous facial recognition, and you can see it working on the screen. And really what this was to really change the game. And what do we mean by changing the game? Well, really it's about making sure that when you send that message, it's actually going to an individual. It's not actually going off to a device. As you know, in a lot of cases, when we talk about instant messaging, the key identifier is normally essentially the telephone number or the email address. It's not the actual person. So when you're in the depths of a cyber attack and you're trying to deal with an off-grid communication or off-band communication technology, this is something that can really make sure that you've built the resilience into the technology that you're using to make sure you're dealing with the people that are actually the right people that you want to talk to, and you're actually sending messages to a person. But, you know, the other thing that was important for us was to bring in features that could really, really help with organizations when dealing with a cyber attack, or just communicating just regularly when trying to use an instant messaging platform. And the feature that I wanted to focus on was the geofencing feature that we have, which is really, you can send a message using the constant facial recognition and the geofencing, and you could send it to an individual, and only if they're in a specific location and they are physically in an environment where they can read that message that is intended for that individual, can they read that message. And then we built in things like no forwarding, no copying, no screenshots, so you don't get into the situation where you perpetuate the actual disaster that you might have. And then on the server front, we really built some key features, and probably the one that stands out the most is really building an invite-only platform. So moving away from the consumer world, where essentially what you're doing is building a platform to communicate with as many people. In that cyber world and in that cyber attack situation, you really only want to be dealing with the key people. And as Jude sort of talked to earlier, this could be a great platform to get out to people about what are the next action steps, what's the disaster tree to walk down on, what are the key elements in the plan that's been established to get you out of the cyber attack. And this could be a way in which you would be guaranteed that only the relevant people are on the platform who can solve those particular problems. So really, that's really what I wanted to focus on. But I think what Leigh and I wanted to do was talk through some of the key examples of where we're seeing people using secure instant messaging technology in environments in the business world, to try and get the audience to understand where we are seeing traction. So maybe Leigh, you want to lead off with maybe a first example, and then I can talk through a couple.
Yeah, so with regards to the areas that we're currently working in, the verticals are very, very different, and they've all got a very different take of what they need to use the technology for. So I suppose one of the first ones is looking at the healthcare industry, where communication needs to be secure depending on what the information that is being sent to certain individuals. If it's within a hospital, if it's in a care home, it could be very, very sensitive information, which does need to be sent very quickly, but also being able to back it up, having that data sovereignty, because within that industry, you get a lot of DSARs, which basically is system access requests. Now, if somebody's using a consumer app because they've got no other way of communicating with somebody, that can then disappear. You've got no way of getting that sensitive information back, which could be applicable to the system access request. And we're seeing the uptake within that healthcare, social care, charity world, where they're desperate for something to be able to mitigate and be compliant straight away with regards to getting this information back. So that's one area that I'm currently working in. I've specialised in the healthcare and social care industry for a long time, and the uptake on that has been huge.
Yeah, so adding to that, Leigh, one of the things that I think is really important is the whole thing around invite-only platforms. So we've been dealing with a couple of organizations where they're really, really concerned around IP leakage, and these are manufacturers, particularly here in the UK. And of course, they're a target because essentially people are trying to steal their ideas and steal what they're building here in the United Kingdom. And one of their concerns is really around IP infringement. And in this particular case, they liked the idea because what they were doing was creating a closed circuit of people that could communicate, who had to be in the know around the development of the said IP that they were working towards to build their product. But in the same time, if you really think about it, today social engineering is a really big key part of cyber and cyber risk. And again, I think if you look at the examples that Jude gave of Land Rover Jaguar and Marks and Spencers, a lot of what happened in those particular cases was around this whole idea of social engineering. And by having a closed circuit invite only platform, really what you're starting to do is eliminating the chances of that trying to happen. And really at Yo, we're taking that even an extra step by making sure it's an authenticated closed circuit communication channel. And it's that tying in of making sure that people are essentially communicating, and you're communicating with the people in the know, not really opening it out using a consumer-based technologies that are out there today, where basically anybody can speak to you, provided they have your telephone number or your email address. And that's sort of how the whole social engineering thing starts, is people having access to talk to you and access from the communication perspective. So Leigh, you would like to give another example of where you're seeing this play?
Yeah, so even if you're looking at manufacturing, even huge construction companies that we're working with, the geofencing really comes into play, because at the moment they typically will use some form of messaging service to actually send passwords, codes to actually access very secure areas. Certainly if you're looking at R&D departments, and being able to actually communicate, knowing it's going to the correct person, but also only being able to access things like passcodes, which do get changed on a regular basis, but only being able to use that once they actually get to the location they need to be to actually use that code. Being able to time it out after a while, so that then disappears. So if because obviously the code is going to change. We're seeing a lot of people, certainly around the geofencing is a game changer for a lot of organizations that I'm dealing with. We are working with some in the sports industry where it's going to be very, very key, which Christo can maybe elaborate to as well, because it's been very recent. We've been having these discussions, and how key it's going to be that people cannot access specific data, very sensitive data, and it cannot leave certain areas when that person actually leaves the area that it's been geofenced to.
Yeah, so I'll end off with one last one, and then we'll hand back to Sharon. But I think the key one, and what's key to our architecture and our technology, is really around facial recognition, and this whole thing about having an authenticated network and really making sure that the messages actually go to the right people. And probably the example of the policing world, and in the policing world, they're dealing with a lot of informers, and in that particular case, they want to make sure that when they're sending messages to individuals, that those individuals are the right people who are reading that message. But not only, it's also around the security. So, and I unfortunately was in an incident last week where I was in London, just got off on a train at Liverpool Street. Somebody snatched my phone. Luckily, I managed to get it back. But I felt secure because I knew all of those key corporate discussions that I was having with Alan around our IP and what we're going to do next and how we're going to do it. I knew all of that stuff was protected, and that was protected because most of those messages had been sent using our facial recognition technology, which meant that nobody could read those messages, only I could read those messages. And we've all been on the train, the tube, where you have people shoulder surfing and looking at your devices while you're typing and reading messages. Any one of those individuals could be somebody seeking to get access to your company and being somebody who potentially could be a cyber threat to your company ultimately. So with that, I would hand back to you, Sharon,
Thanks, Christo.
You can take it to the next level.
Yeah, no, I was reading the news this morning, and it was like they smashed a crime gang that basically were like sending 40,000 iPhones back to China, selling them for £4,000 a piece. So yeah, it's happening. London, massive target for that. So sorry to hear of that experience for you. Okay, guys. I'd just like you to remind you that we've obviously got the question session. So please do put your questions into that little question box with a question mark on it, and I'll do my best to represent you after I've brought Alan on. So Alan, I'd like to hand the mic across to you now. Could we talk a little bit more about what's happening in government at the moment? So I'm referring to the Cyber Security and Resilience Bill that's working its way through Parliament. Can we talk a little bit to that and the impacts of that you see happening in 2026, early 26?
Unmute helps if I
Thank you.
unmute, but yeah, sure. It's quite interesting. You know, we all love a little bit of legislation. Some of it is an absolute pain in business, but some of it is there to protect us and to actually help us govern our businesses a little better. The Cyber Resilience Bill is now law, and that is tightening and pushing down the responsibility for your cyber defense to company owners and management within businesses. So as particularly in the UK, this is happening all over the world, to be quite frank with you. I'm off to the States in a couple of weeks' time and was looking at their laws as well, and they and Canada are tightening up on cyber resilience. That and the Online Safety Act, which has been strengthened. The new laws basically demand that you can prove that you can withstand recovery incident. So that's not just react. It's not just, oh, we've got a plan in place. It's what have you done? How are you doing it? How well are you prepared? And most importantly, they have the right to audit you afterwards. And so your communication will need to have an audit path. And of course, if you're using WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, or any of these other social media platforms, you're not only open to anybody reading the messages, but you have no backup. You have no way of going back and saying, well, actually 6 months ago, this event happened. And during that period of time, this is how we approached it. And this is what we did in order to meet the law. Boards and executives will be personally accountable. So there's no way out in the future. You are not only accountable for your employees, you're accountable for your data at all stages. So I won't go over the traditional messages and collaboration. I think everybody's made that very, very clear. Any messaging where you are not authenticating the users means that anybody can actually pose as a user and in fact pass off in order to get access in information at any time. From Yo Messaging's point of view, what we do is we turn comms into a resilience asset. So we are identity bound on the encryption. So every message is tied and to a verified face. So you always know who you're dealing with. You're dealing with a human being rather than just an endpoint, one of these things. Zero trust. So messages can't be forwarded, can't be copied, can't be leaked. And we've also got instant revocation. So you can actually delete. And when you delete, it's instantaneously deleted on the device at any stage, which can be very, very handy, particularly if you're undergoing an attack. And audit and compliance logs, absolutely, completely searchable, auditable backup. So should any regulators require you to prove an action or details, you can always get to it. So from a UK point of view, adopting a product like Yo will give you stronger compliance, a much stronger compliance posture. It will lower the risk of reputational damage because don't forget, at the end of the day, a lot of these companies being hit are public companies. The moment it gets out and the information is not contained or managed, it has a significant impact on their share price as well. So basically what we provide is a provable foundation of trust, security, and operational continuity. So in short, cyber resilience is now law. We are responsible, and we believe that Yo Messaging makes it a much more practical way of managing your out of band communication, and also provides you with a cyber resilience layer every day by operating a fully secure and biometrically secured communications channel. That's about it, really. As you know, I could rap on about this all day as well, but
thank you.
Very good points today.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so thank you, speakers. We now move over to the interactive part of the session. So the last 15 minutes we wanted to dedicate to a Q&A session, so as an Ask Us Anything session. And like I said at the beginning, please use the time while we have the experts on the call to actually ask any question at all. We've got a couple of questions in, so the box is very tiny, so please forgive me. Okay, so Danielle, good morning. You ask, what are some of the common mistakes organizations make when responding to a cyber fraud incident? Who wants to take that one? Common mistakes organizations make. Jude, is that a you? Yeah.
I think by not having an incident response plan, and also not having it printed out, not having a list of the correct agencies to call, and also probably not having the right team of people together. So we've seen people that when they've exercised, that they know who they want on their side, they know who they will need. Whereas I think sometimes when they haven't exercised and you're in on an incident, and there could be 40 people running around like headless chickens, and 40 people are not going to help get the organization back in operation. And also on that point as well, a lot of people just plan for the incident. So they test the incident and they think, all right, we're managing a cyber incident, but who's actually going to manage bringing the organization back up and running, looking after the staff, and that cultural side of things, and also the stakeholder stuff. So it isn't just around firefighting for an incident. So we've probably seen them managed better than worse. So yeah, that's a good point, that people, they always want to try their best, but sometimes they're just not organized enough around an incident like this. And going back to Stuart Macon from Marks and Spencer's, when he said you can test and you can plan for all of this, but nothing prepares you for the fresh smell of gunfire on the morning of an attack or the afternoon of attack. So yeah, you are under attack. So it is like bullets flying at you right, left and center. So that's what you have to be prepared for.
Can I also say,
sheer panic.
yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry, Sharon. I was just going to say that we've done a lot of work with insurance companies running cyber insurance books, and on average, it's taken up to 45 days for a company to make a claim. The insurance, of course, pays out from the moment the incident happens, so they're very interested in people assembling the team as quickly as possible and having the first notice of loss. What we did with one insurance company is we developed a group chat that was basically a break glass group chat, and it instantaneously assembles your breach team. And that cuts your time to recover down. It puts in place a protocol for management, communications management in particular. And if you look at Land Rover, what happened with them was all of their suppliers were affected as well. So it's very important when you're putting together your breach plan to go beyond the walls of your business and look at your supplier network in order to maintain your, basically maintain your core operation at all stages.
And also, and I would, sorry.
You carry on, Jude, you carry on.
I would add as well that when you do that risk and that chance of, I think you should be as open and transparent as possible. But what you do have to also build into your incident plan is around some of your stakeholders and some of your suppliers cutting off contact straight away. So your banks might say, we're not dealing with you anymore. If you're in education, maybe, the universities, or who the UCAS, I don't know what the equivalent is down there. So the organizations that help around doing exams, if you're the NHS, or if you are a supplier to the NHS. So all of those kind of things. And if the banks cut off access, how are you going to pay suppliers? How are you going to pay your staff as well? So I think if you have if you are prepared like that, and you have your comms and everything sorted out, I think that gives another layer of probably that protection, but also that the companies know that you're taking this seriously and you have done everything to prepare for it, and that they can't really blame you for the cyber attack itself. But they do see you as if you have some sort of virus, and you do, but they don't want to catch it.
Yeah, and I mean, the way I was going to go was more of a sort of a technical way, Jude, on my side and Alan, and that was, the whole principle of having out of band communication means that it truly is out of band, which really means that the actual messaging technology is not sitting in the traditional data center where your current technology is sitting, and which is going to get attacked in a cyber attack. And again, one of the things when looking at this out of band technology, and we put it under the banner of data sovereignty, but it's really about having that ability to have something that really sits outside. And then when you have that attack, you have this medium that you can start communicating internally, and not using Facebook as an example, but using a technology that's been vetted by that organization, and then sitting on a platform that essentially the organization has done the necessary tests on, which is outside of the traditional IT infrastructure.
Yeah, I think.
And also, if you were going to use Facebook as well, how do people, we're telling people not to trust people now. So if you got a message on Facebook to say, Jude, can you do, I'd be like, off you go.
Exactly.
And it's public. It was, when you said about that, I sat here and I thought, oh my God.
But that's how desperate. That's how desperate people are. If if your phone systems go down and you don't have, even to have that conversation. There are a lot of organizations, we take it for granted because of the way we work and we communicate and stuff, that we're okay with people having our personal numbers. But some people are like, no, you're not adding my personal number onto an instant response plan.
Exactly.
But come on, Facebook, where there's no way that I'm going to go, yeah, that's fine, I'll call you on Facebook.
Oh, thanks, team. You ready for the next question, or has anyone got anything else they'd like to add to that one? Okay, so one piece of advice, please, to boost cyber resilience in 2025 and 2026. What would that be? One piece of advice. Do you each want to take that, or one from Yo and Jude? Go ahead.
Jude, why don't you start? Always ladies first.
One piece of advice each. Thank you.
You're just trying to think of something, Christo. There's lots of it. I would start with the people side of things. So train your staff and train your boards. That's two pieces in one.
I'll give you that.
I've just got one piece of advice. Have a plan. I mean, that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. Just have a plan and make sure the plan's tested.
Yeah.
It's funny, this is the bit where I always say control, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, control your communication at all stages. Every employee in your business today, they're fallible. We all get it. I get phishing coming through on my email every single day. There's some organization that's definitely targeting me and trying to get into our system. You have to be vigilant. You have to check the sender information, and trust me, if you haven't ordered something, you are not going to get a delivery. So they don't need to know where you live, and they don't need your password. If you haven't forgotten your password, you don't need to enter it to change it. So education of every single person in your organization. They all are sitting beside a door, and they only need to give it open just a slight crack, and that person will come in every single time. So control your people, control your communications, and control your messaging and what you're putting out there. And please do not use social media in your businesses, otherwise you will be hit quicker than what you expect.
Thanks, Alan. James asked for one, but you gave three under one guise of the word control, so I'm going to let you get that. So that's fair enough. Leigh, did you want to quickly add something?
Yeah, I think honesty within the organisation has been a big one over my cyber career, that when people make a mistake, to be upfront, do not bury your heads in the sand, and be honest about what has actually happened, because it will not go away.
Yeah, because often mistakes are seen as faults, right? And that's like immediately, yeah, defend yourself. No, completely. Okay, thank you, guys. Okay, this one is definitely a yo question. So it's actually about the, Christo, maybe you want to take this one, about the continuous biometric authentication. Is it seen as intrusive by users?
Okay, so it's a good question, and I would say initially maybe, but the truth is people build trust with it, and we've been very careful about the development of the technology. So when we developed the technology using the continual facial recognition, all the photos, everything is stored locally on the phone. Nothing is stored on any server anywhere. So we give the reassurance to the users that essentially the technology is sitting locally on the phone. And really what we're using is a biometric key. And it's that key that's doing the comparison. It's actually not the face itself. So that's the way I'd answer that question. I'll just add one more little element. So I'm doing a bit of an Alan, which is, this is what makes us GDPR compliant, right? Is essentially the fact that we're not taking that facial information as a picture and storing it on any server anyway.
True, very true.
I'd also
Thanks, guys.
add that we took many years to make sure that the idea behind continuous facial recognition is not in any way intrusive. It's very subliminal. The only time that you actually know it's really working is when it's the wrong face. And at that point, we obfuscate. So it's, and it's like any type of innovation, they will only be adopted if they do not require extensive human changing human behavior, and if they are non-intrusive. So that was our focal point, and I think we've done a very, very good job of doing that in the product.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Okay, Sarah asks, it's an integration, so I'm not sure who wants to take it. How easy is it to integrate Yo into my current business tech stack? I'd like to take that one.
Yeah, I can take it. I mean, you know, the great thing about Yo is that it's we own all the IP, we own the technology, so we can always look at, you know, integrating into specific things, provided the APIs are available and it makes business sense. We'll look at it. But I want to go back to the most important point. Our proposal is really one that says we don't really want to integrate 100% into your current IT stack, as in we don't want to be part of your current system, because ultimately how we see ourselves in the corporate world is being that private secure network, or if you like, that outer band network. So really where I would sort of answer that question is, and I do this every time I go and see a corporate, Leigh, and I do this every single time, you know, how many people are using WhatsApp? How many people are using, you know, Facebook? How many people are using Signal? How many people are using consumer apps when in actual fact they should be using essentially, you know, corporate-based enterprise products? And that's really where Yo fits, is we are providing a corporate instant messaging platform. We'll work on any cloud platform. We could even host ourselves in a bare metal environment if that's something that people want. So there's nothing that is out of the ordinary, would make very difficult for any IT department to adopt. But I just leave that little scenario, which is really our game is to provide that authenticated network, which in most cases in the cyber context would be an out of bound type of communication network.
Yeah.
And Jude's nodding, so I
Got it.
must have said the right thing.
Okay, guys. Geofencing. I think, Leigh, you spoke about geofencing earlier. Do you want to just give us a quick, I've got a question here. How does geofencing work? Do you want to give us a quick answer to that?
Yeah,
Or-
sure. So with the geofencing, obviously, like everything can be switched on from the application. So if you're wanting to send a message directly to somebody, now you may only want that person to actually read that message when they hit a specific location. So you can set the geofence based on an address, and that once they hit that location, it could be a secure location, so some information that you only want somebody to read when they get there. Even an analogy around a construction company I've been talking to, they have a lot of their drivers who need information when they get to site. What they don't want is the drivers of the wagons or anything looking at a message before they actually get there. One, it's not safe, but two, they only need to understand what that message is once they reach their destination, for example. So it's cutting down obviously on problems of people tempted to open a message. So yeah, you can set it to a location. You can set it to make sure that once somebody leaves that location, that message cannot be accessed, cannot be read. And you know, typically, like I said earlier, with passcodes to get into a location, you may not want somebody to have, you know, to have access to that until they actually hit a specific location. So it's an easy way to protect, and obviously once that person's there, the person who's sent that information will be notified, and then you can release that information to the person at the desired location.
Also going to be really big in healthcare, I guess, as well.
Yeah, I mean, another area where we see a lot of this, Sharon, is when people want to open up lock boxes, you know, and that sort of stuff. So they get to the door or wherever it is, and then they have a passcode, and only when they're in that door or in front of that door can they actually open up that lockbox. So that's a really good example of where something like geofencing will work. But the one I love the most is the what we call signal gate, and that was the situation where information was sent, and unfortunately there was a journalist who was in the group, which is a user error, by the way. But they could have, if they were in the situation where they had a geofence function, they could have said, well, that message is very, you know, it's mission critical. It's to do with the DOD, the Department of Defense. It's about a mission plan. And only people who are in the White House or in the Pentagon can actually read that message. If you're outside, you can't. That would have been another really good example of how geofencing could be a big plus for organizations and when they use that.
I remember the Yemen airstrikes.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's exactly the one. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Please tap in questions. Mark has asked, which verticals are you seeing the most traction in, and do you plan to target different industries? I mean, guys, you've spoken to some of these anyway, but do you just want to highlight a couple of your
at the high level, what I would say is any company that's regulated, number one, that would be the first place. The second place would be any organization that treats instant messaging as a key component to their communication platform. And then thirdly, I would say it's twofold. One, where there's a high percentage of BYD devices, so bring your own devices, and bringing those under control, which is the context of the cybersecurity issue. And then the final point I would say is particularly those people that are remote and are on the road all the time, because they are more sort of susceptible to using technologies like the consumer grade types of messaging platforms. and even the social media platforms like we mentioned, you know, Facebook, Instagram, all those kinds of things. So, you know, that's really where we are playing, I think, in our marketplace. So it's quite a large spread of verticals that we're playing to, but those would be the key points that we would look for when we're talking to a corporate customer.
I think to add to that, Christo, as well, organisations that have got a lot of fractional staff, people who are temporary, people who are taken on for a period of time, where we can manage from an admin portal that once that person actually leaves based on that short-term contract or that contract, everything that there's been backward and forwards on the messaging, on the application, we can basically take them straight off. It means they're not walking away with any information that it then belongs to a company. So a lot of organizations, going back to healthcare, education being a huge one, where there's so much relief staff entering in, having access to certain data and needing to communicate quickly with what I've been talking about to them. It makes this easy, it makes it secure, and it makes them compliant.
Yeah, I think the other thing, that's always a difficult question for us, is, you know, where we're seeing the most traction. We have, it's so across the board, you know, everything from marriage guidance to military. There is no sector that does not have a major issue with its communications, because we all use instant messaging, and at the end of the day we all lose control the moment we hit send, and we are seeing that everywhere. People have no idea who's viewing your messages. On social platforms, you have no idea who's sending the message to you. You have no idea. You believe you do because it comes from their phone. But 82,000 of these were stolen last year. So people can send messages to you and you have no idea who they are. So we need to be very, very careful, and it's reflecting in the interest we've got, pretty much, not necessarily worldwide, but most certainly here in North America, Middle East, etc., where we have started our outreach.
Thanks, Alan. Yeah, good last point there, so thank you. Okay, so we are coming up to the hour anyway. I just want to apologise for our technical start. So hopefully it wasn't too much of an inconvenience. I think we managed to get going at about 3 minutes past 11 in the end. So the good news is that we have recorded it, so we will be sending you a copy of the recording. And the other thing I should have said, actually, along with that, you'll receive a link where you can request a demo if you want to speak to Christo, to Leigh, to Alan, to any of the Yo messaging team. You've got a link in there where you can request some time and on a one-to-one environment. So that's a good thing to do. Okay, so my last thing is just say thank you to our panelists. Obviously, Jude, thank you, Christo, Leigh, Alan, and most importantly to you guys for joining us, for bearing with us in that first few minutes. And please do carry on the conversation. We would love to talk to you more. Yeah, brilliant. And have a good day. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.